This is your friendly neighborhood atheist.
Hey, what's up, everyone? I'm Ethan Micheal, and alongside me is Mandisa. How's it going?
Pretty good. How are you, Ethan? It's good to be here.
It's good to have you here. So, real quick, before I jump off screen, tell everyone a little bit about yourself.
Yes, so for those of you who aren't familiar with me, I am Mandisa Thomas. I am the founder and president of Black Nonbelievers Incorporated, which is an organization headquartered in the Atlanta, Georgia area. I will talk more about that in just a moment. We are doing a takeover of the Your Friendly Neighborhood Atheist show tonight. Thank you, Ethan, once again.
No, thanks for doing this. All right, I'll let you get started. I'll bring your guests, and I'm jumping out of here. Good luck.
Awesome. Good evening, everyone. It is a pleasure once again to be here with you this evening. As I just said, I'm Mandisa Thomas. I'm the founder and president of Black Nonbelievers, and we are here this evening for the Black Nonbelievers Roundtable. Now, I'm just going to give a short introduction. If you aren't familiar with our organization, we are a 501c3 nonprofit organization. Headquartered in the Atlanta area, we connect with other Blacks and allies who are living free of religion and might otherwise be shunned by family members and friends by providing a caring, friendly, and informative environment. Instead of accepting dogma, we determine truth and morality through reason and evidence. The mission of Black Nonbelievers is to provide secular fellowship, nurture and support nonbelievers in coming out, i.e. open identification, promoting pride in the atheist and secular identities, and organizing members for various events and charitable causes. And Black Nonbelievers welcomes all regardless of age, gender identity, sexual identity, national origin, and racial identity. Now, for those of you who might still be in the dark, Black Nonbelievers is now 10 years old. We got started in 2011. We celebrated our 10th anniversary in January, partly in person in New Orleans and also online. And a major part of our mission has been to amplify the voices of Black atheists in particular. And one of the most gratifying parts of being in this community and developing this organization is working with a number of people who don't just participate with us, but they've also been producing content. They've gotten involved as activists and volunteers in our instance. And we've been producing a number. We've had the opportunity to participate in a number of projects and amplify a number of voices. And I'm very, very happy to present this roundtable of those who represent not only our organization, but also other Black atheist voices, because this is absolutely important. It isn't just me doing this work. It isn't just me representing. There are other wonderful amazing people in this community, and I'm glad to bring us all together and for you to hear from them. Some of them you may be familiar with already, but I'm very, very happy to have them join us today, and definitely look forward to hearing more from them soon. So in alphabetical order by first name, I am going to ask each of our guests this evening to introduce themselves, tell us a bit about yourself, where you are located, and also tell us a bit about your journey to atheism, non-belief, if you will. So that's Cynthia. Let's start with you.
Hey everybody, my name is Cynthia, and okay, my green screen doing something weird, but that's okay. Anyway, I am in the Chicagoland area. I hail as I'm a social worker by trade, and as far as like what I do in the community, I am also a YouTuber. I have guest hosted on different roundtables and things of that nature on Your Friendly Neighborhood Atheists. I also have my own show called The 13%, where I talk about, along with my partner Arthur Ward, self-proclaimed Pope of Atheism. And we talk about the socioeconomic plights of African Americans that primarily descend from chattel slavery. I'm also a guest host on the Nonprofits, which is a ACA show that comes on Sundays at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time. I'm also a blogger. I have a blog called the ADOSHealthAndWellness.com, which talks about the social determinants of health coming from the Black American community. And as far as like my own personal journey, as far as coming into atheism, I'm a fairly newer atheist. I've been atheist since 2018, and the short of it is that I was getting pretty disenchanted with being Christian. I found just way too many inconsistencies in the Bible, and also how, you know, Christians are said to treat one another. I also have experienced church hurt myself, and I'm pretty sure that a lot of the panelists can actually, you know, attest to that as well, if you come from a predominantly Black Christian background. And I started to look at other things to kind of find, like, you know, the meaning of life per se. I did the whole spiritualism route. You know, I studied the chakras. I did the chanting, and I even discovered Buddhism, which I'm still a practicing Buddhist, but I'm a secular Buddhist. And within my you know, studying Buddhism and that particular practice, that actually led me to be an atheist. And basically, it was that I just could not. I just could not see that that an existence of God made sense, if that makes sense, in the way that I realized that along this whole life journey, I was pretty much, you know, the only thing that was catching me in also my support system. So that just kind of just sent me to, you know what, I guess I'm atheist now, and I have been atheist ever since. And since then, I have found a community of other people who are non-believers like myself, and I'm very happy to be here. Thank you.
Awesome. We have, who's next? Kevon.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, everybody. I'm Kevon Cameron from New York. I run the Black Nonbelievers affiliate in New York for about almost 3 years now. I was born in Jamaica, but grew up in New York. And I've been running the group for a while. Like I said, we do a lot of social events, a lot of happy hours. We do mini golf. It's just a group where we get together with other atheists. You know, you spend a lot of time in your life just dealing with a lot of religious people. So it can be good to just not even necessarily talk about atheism, but just be around other people of like mind, if that makes sense. So we do a lot of like social events, activities, and we also encourage like hanging out outside of the actual meetup group, because the whole point is not just to meet up for meetup's sake, but to actually make friends, like my two best friends I met in the group. So I've been doing that for a while now. As far as a journey towards atheism, I would describe myself primarily as an agnostic atheist. The religion never made sense to me, but I don't think I would have said like atheist until I was about, 16 or so, because, you know, YouTube wasn't really a thing back then. But I think if YouTube had been around when I was like 5, I would have been like, oh yeah, that makes sense. That's what I am. Agnostic atheist, it was raised in a Christian home, but it never really clicked with me at all. There was never a point where it was like, oh yeah, God, sure. So I sought out different atheist things, and eventually stumbled onto Mandisa, who was nice enough to let me run the New York group, which is like ridiculous. To just like, I wouldn't have thought of myself as the guy running a meetup group for a nonprofit, you know, in New York. It's a huge city, but it's been fun. Hopefully, you know, we can get back to doing some things in the upcoming future, like other than just the Zoom calls. We can, like, once everything is, you know, normal and stable, we can see people in person and like have that sort of community again. But yeah, that's me.
Thank you, Kevon. Madison.
Hi. Hello, everyone. My name is Madison Paige. I want to thank Mandisa for inviting me here tonight. I'm in the nation's capital, and I grew up here in Washington, D.C., spent a little time in Florida, and came back in 2011, and I'm glad to be back here in D.C. Um, I am the founder and CEO of Bold Blue Campaigns. We are the nation's only grassroots funded campaign services company. We serve exclusively Democratic state and local candidates, making sure that they have all the tools they need to fight, run strong, credible campaigns no matter where they are in the country. I'm also the director of People Over PACs and the creator of the 5-point power acquisition plan for the American left. Um, Obviously, I'm into politics. That's one of the things that I do professionally. I am also a film and television producer. I'm working on a few really promising projects. One specifically dealing with mental health and mental illness in the Black community. Very excited about that episodic series. And religion is definitely going to be playing a role in how we in the characters and some of the characters that are featured in this series. My journey to atheism, I grew up in a home that was moderately religious. Most of my my religious indoctrination came as a result of my junior and senior high school. My parents weren't really into religion strongly. We did sort of like the Sunday school thing, but it was, you leave that on Sunday. But my junior and senior high were religious education, and that's where I, you know, became immersed in Christian doctrine. And I too, just like Cynthia, sort of went in and out of the Christian faith, also discovering other types of belief systems, Buddhism, Hinduism, Taoism, witchcraft. And so I today describe myself as atheist. I don't believe, I have not seen any existence of gods, but I also describe myself as a rationalist and a humanist. So all of those mean a little bit different for me. I reject all superstitious belief, whether there's a deity involved or not. If there's anything magical that's happening that doesn't make sense, I need to see evidence for it. So my journey, I've been comfortable with the term atheist for, I don't know, over a decade. And it took me about 10 years from the time that I left the church in my mid 20s until my mid 30s or so before I was comfortable um, um, questioning the existence of God. I was out of the church, but I still believed that there was something out there, something. And I think I finally embraced the term about a decade or so ago, atheist. So I'm also a member of the board of the American Atheist Organization. Very proud of that as well.
Yes, fellow board member of American Atheists. Glad to have you, Madison. And also, for those of you who don't know, I am also a New Yorker. So Kevon and I share that in common. But last and certainly not least, Rogiers.
Hey, how are you doing? Thank you, Mandisa, for inviting me. And it's great to hear everybody. I love Mandisa, and I love Madison and Kevon, and I just met Cynthia today. And so we've all enjoyed each other's company through the years. At this point, we've been connected for a number of years. Mandisa and I met Mandisa about 10 years ago when Black Nonbelievers was forming, and I was just starting to kind of really get settled into a life of non-belief and getting comfortable with what that meant. My name is Rogiers. I'm originally from St. Croix in the U.S. Virgin Islands, and moved to the D.C. area when I was a kid, about 9 years old, and have been at least stateside from D.C. since then. I've lived around the country and in a few places around the world, and came back to DC in 2014. And And so in addition to that, I just also add that I am a musician. I'm an artist. I'm a singer. I'm a songwriter, a performer, and also a former minister of music. And so a big part of my exodus from religion was vis-a-vis playing in churches and playing in a number of different denominations, whether we're talking about Presbyterian, AME, Baptist, Seventh-day Adventist, Reformed Church, Catholic, Black Catholic, I would say, and probably a few others that I'm forgetting. But I played in churches as a musician for over 30 years in one way or another. As an actual minister of music, that started for me in spurts. Coming out of college, and throughout my career, I've had a number of wonderful opportunities as a solo artist and also as a backing artist for big folks. And I've played every kind of venue from big to small. But throughout that, whenever I was home, I always maintained what we call a church gig in the music world. And so I've seen a lot of religion, a lot of Christianity. I myself am born Moravian, or not born Moravian, but I was raised Moravian, which is a denomination that is very prevalent in the West Indies and St. Croix and Virgin Islands. We're part of the former Danish West Indies, and the Moravian Church was very prevalent in the Danish West Indies. So when we came up to the States, continued in the Moravian tradition. And so that's my church background. I could say a whole lot more, and we'll get into some other details, I'm sure, but just to bring it up to speed, currently I am the lead organizer for Black Nonbelievers of DC. As Kevon is for New York, we are located here in the DC area and just basically doing the task of all of the organizing, the programming, and the just the fellowship, essentially keeping the fellowship and building, continuing to build that fellowship of non-believers here in this area. And the work that I do is it's all activism and advocacy work, but I would say it's kind of multifaceted in that first and foremost, the first thing of the activist sort of job in this context for atheism is to first just exist, right? The fact that we exist is just already a bold and cold stance. And so us existing is a form of activism. In addition to that, we also are representing in our communities by being out and being vocal and being assertive in our presence among the myriad of different types of people that we live amongst. In addition to that, we have legislation and legal work and advocacy work that we do to try to address needs and to partner with other organizations that are also doing that work to make sure that there is a healthy boundary between church and state. And that includes advocating for laws like the Do No Harm Act, which is something that I've been a part of with Mandisa, as well as some of our sister organizations, to help push that legislation through Congress that would respect church and state boundaries when it comes to a number of things that affect us as non-believers. We also have volunteering, and that's an aspect of what we do in trying to do good works for goodness sake and to be a positive influence when we can be, to support initiatives and to give food and clothing to certain other sister organizations that we've partnered up with here in the DC area. And also just donations. Sometimes there are things where we can't necessarily be in person, but we do those things through small donations. So we do that. And then last but not least, education and educational programming is a big part of what certainly I've been interested in doing since taking over this position a few years ago. And that is to just be a force or a resource for education on non-belief, on atheism, agnosticism, on empiricism, and so forth, and also Black history. And so a big part of what our organization does is we represent atheism and non-belief and skepticism through the lens of Black activism and Black power, and the idea of essentially trying to re-educate ourselves from so much of the indoctrination that we as Black people and people of color have experienced for generations in this country, and also partnering up with other organizations abroad in the African diaspora. So we have sister organizations as well in the Caribbean, and we partner with organizations in the UK, and we've got a number of different folks and friends around the world who we are in league with. And so it's all a part of the whole for Black non-believers of DC, but for all of us, whether we're in New York, Atlanta, or Chicago, we're all doing this work together in one way or another. And so that's a little bit about what I do with BN. And I'm also on the board of Washington area secular humanists. And we also are, as Black non-believers of DC, we are also a chapter of the AHA, the American Humanist Association, and very proud to be so. And I'll turn it over to you, Mandisa, so I don't overtalk.
All right. Thank you very much. And as you can see, we have some wonderful representation. We have some very, very powerful people on this panel, and there's definitely more of us here. So I want to ask everyone to weigh in on this first question. This is a question that we can never avoid. Every time we speak about, Black non-believers or Black atheists, we always get this question. Why is there a need for Black non-believers? I'm sure that we would love to put this question to bed, but, hopefully this will help the viewers here understand, our perspectives or your perspectives on this. So whoever would like to jump in first, and I would like either Madison or Cynthia to start this. Why is there a need for an organization called Black non-believers?
Madison, I'll let you go first.
Well, I mean, clearly we as Black people have a very specific cultural experience with religion. We have a lot of history, for better or for worse, with religion. And I think for quite a few of us, it's more than just a worship thing when you go to church. It is considered part of your history. It's considered part of your legacy. And leaving those things behind can be seen as an abandonment of our culture, a denial of our racial, ethnic background. It can be seen as a slap in the face to the civil rights and all of the things that we've gone through as a people. And so there's an especial burden and consideration that happens when Black people are finding themselves not so enamored of the concept of God. And in fact, one of the reasons that I love Black non-believers as much as I do is because it does recognize that I think there are a lot of people sitting in church pews right now who do not believe, but they're there because of the community. They're there because of family. They're there because of their job. They can't come out. And those experiences are a lot more prevalent in our community than I think they are in other communities.
Amen to that. And really just like piggybacking, especially on the community part. And I know that Mandisa, you can kind of speak to this when it comes to the percentage of like how our community is overwhelmingly Christian. I think that the last time I checked the Pew Research, it was like about 79% of Black folk in America specifically that identify as Christian. And as far as like Black atheists are concerned, it's like less than 1%. So, when, Madison, you were speaking on like if you are rejecting, religion and belief and things of that nature, and you happen to be Black, that is almost like an assault on, saying that you are Black because, religion has been so really very much so tied in our identity. So when you have an organization like the Black non-believers and people who actually, are part of that work, when it comes to recognizing us as a people, as a group, as a community, it is so important because like, I don't think it's, and I mean, just from being part of the YouTube space for as long as I have, is that to find like, white voices when it comes to atheism it's not difficult at all, right? And so, and oftentimes, like, especially like one of us, when we're coming out of religion and are looking for a space to kind of, get to a point where, other people get it per se, they don't necessarily look like us. So to have, again, these spaces on where, not only are you atheist, but you are Black, that you can actually find community and find like-minded people and be able to even build with one another. That is so important. Because like, I think that I was even wrestling with this question earlier. Like, oftentimes, like, people look at you, and if you are, very much so out as an atheist, and even as a Black atheist, like, people like look at you like, are you okay? So if you're an atheist, like, oftentimes they often, put that with activism in some kind of way. So are you for religion, the separation of religious and of religion, church, and state? Are you for, fighting for the rights of, people who so that they can be who they are as far as like their sexual orientation, or even when it comes to their gender identification, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then how does that look being Black, And it's kind of like, I can do it all. Like, I can walk and chew gum at the same time. And just because, like, I happen to be a Black atheist, I don't necessarily have to pick and choose what I will and will not advocate for in some shape, way, or form. So, if you do have a space where, we can actually be able to be out and loud and proud when it comes to, being an atheist and who happens to be Black, I think that it's just so important for us to be able to even and in some cases to even deconvert healthily. No, that is not a word, but in a healthy manner. So, that's my just take on like why, like, the Black nonbelievers and why community spaces like this are so important.
Yes, Kevon and Ro, if you'd like to jump in on that.
Well,
Humans are social creatures, right? And if we're not alone, if we feel like we're alone, it's just really hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say that I don't want to use the term safe space, because that has a sort of connotation in today's society. But I think one of the best parts is that I think baked into the fabric of the organization is that you don't have anyone asking you to pray. Like, you can come hang out with us at a meetup. There's no one's going to ask you to pray. No one's going to ask you what church you go to. Also, it's if you're, and this is a lot of people in the community, if you're, transgender, or you're gay, or, or what have you, you're in a marginalized community, it's baked into the fabric of Black nonbelievers that you're not going to get harassed. You're not going to have to listen to people talk about like how wrong your lifestyle is, or like you shouldn't be doing this, you shouldn't be doing that. It's a very accepting type of space that you don't get in a lot of other places.
Yeah. The other thing to me is that, when, as I always say, Black nonbelievers and being a Black atheist and the work that we do, we are doing Black liberation work, right? So for me, I see this work in that lens. And when you are doing Black liberation work, that is opposed to white supremacy, you do have to assert yourself in a different way. And sometimes that requires you to create your own institutions, as we've done historically in this country. And the same reason that there's a Black church is the same reason there's a Black nonbelievers. It's the same reason that there are Black health clinics. It's the same reason that there are Black schools and Black colleges. It all comes down to the same thing because of the structure of this country in terms of race and hierarchy and institutional oppression and presumptions of what normal is and what is mainstream or status quo. And so you formed this organization to assert itself against those systems. And those systems exist also in the atheist and humanist space. And so that is part of the reason why we have this group. But it's also not to the exclusion of being involved with, quote, mainstream groups. And so it's important to, in as much as we affirm ourselves as Black people, as non-believers, that we also are looked at as not being exclusionary, to the sense that we're not saying that no one else can have their own space. We're not saying that you can't even come into our space. We're just saying that we have specific cultural and personal and religious or ex-religious needs and things that make us, that bring us together, that we have in common, that we need to work out and process. And a big part of, especially for our groups, a lot of our people are ex-religious people. So they need a place to process what that means. You know, not everybody has grown up without any kind of religion at all. There's some level of religious indoctrination that we've all been exposed to. And so a lot of our people are coming out of very deeply traumatic experiences, and who better for them to sort of process that with than other Black people. I was on a recent podcast with a very fine gentleman, and we kind of got close to this subject, and I was talking about Black churches and certain aspects of church, and the conversation in other ways isn't relevant. But what he said was that he said something like all Black, there's a difference between the Black churches in the North and the way they do such and such, and the Black churches in the South. And I had to correct him. I said, no. I said, all Black churches are Southern Black churches. They're all Southern. You know what I'm saying? Because, and this goes back to that history, which, and he's an atheist, and he's a good guy. I'm not saying anything about him, but he's an atheist. And I had to explain to him that when you think about the migration, the great migration of Black people from the South to the North, and then there's two of them, actually. We often talk about only one, but there's actually two of them. But when you talk about the great migration and the people who came up to escape, you know, Jim Crow South and terrorism, and to try to have economic gains and to, you know, be able to raise their families in peace, you're talking about people bringing Southern culture, what we consider to be Southern Black culture, to the North, and just retaining it and preserving it and trying to sustain it. And so, you know, yes, on some level, maybe the East Coast, you know, they got to shout this like this, and the West Coast, they got to shout this like that. But the reality is that we're all kind of, our provenance is in the South, and that's a part of the Black church experience. And so, even in these spaces, you know, I find myself having to tell people, like, you know, you don't know as much as you think, you know, about Black people and about Black church, and by extension about Black atheism. So that's the reason why we have these groups.
Woo, y'all are saying a word right now. I am just absolutely loving this. And so kind of following up to what y'all are saying here. Why is it important, if possible, for more Black atheists to make themselves more visible and also mobilize, even if it isn't necessarily with Black non-believers per se, if they can? And whoever wants to jump in on that.
I was going to say representation. That is so important. I think about like how I'm a big Star Trek fan. And I remember watching that show when I was young with my mom. And it's kind of funny, like, you know, Kevon, you actually mentioned that you're from Jamaica. My mom's from Jamaica too. Ha, hey, bro.
Hey.
Anyway, so one of the things that I used to love to see is Nichelle Nichols, you know, aka Lieutenant Uhura, on television. And, you know, she was like the fifth in charge of this like massive starship, and how, like, to me, that looked like, oh, wow, look, you know, you could see Black women in space and Black women not being maids. And, you know what I'm saying? So that meant something to me as far as like seeing that. So to your question, Mandisa, when you were talking about like, you know, why is it so important for, you know, Black atheists to be, you know, more visible and to be out about their, you know, atheism, is because, you know, that brings more of us to, you know, to the plate where it says, yes, this is okay. And yes, there's more people that's like you. And yes, you're more accepted more than you think. And we can, and, you know, we can be seen and be heard. And that's why, you know, it's just so important to be, you know, out here in these particular spaces, you know, being unapologetically who you are.
I think Also, too, one of the things that I've noticed when I talk to other Black atheists, as opposed to what I hear when I talk to atheists who are not Black, I think, and this is probably a huge generalization, but it's anecdotal, but it has been my experience that we seem to arrive at this place in a different way than our white counterparts. If you ask a lot of white atheists, hey, how did you get here? They'll talk about science, and they'll talk about Darwin, and they'll talk about, Stephen Hawking, and they'll talk about all of these people. I didn't get here from any of those people. I did not study the Big Bang. I don't have any special knowledge of, geology or any of those things. That's not how I got here. And I think a lot of us have had a very different journey to atheism than our counterparts. And so even when organizations, well-meaning organizations, are trying to do outreach, they don't know how to talk to us because we're not talking about science. It's not that we're not into it. It's just that's not how a lot of us get here. In my experience, what I've observed, I'll say in my observation, is just not how we're arriving at this place. So I think there's some fundamental differences beyond the cultural and community aspects and the liberation aspects and the historical aspects. I think just in general, how did we get here? If you ask 100 Black atheists, how did you get here? I'd say a very, very small percentage of them will talk about their STEM education leading them to atheism.
I would also add to what Madison said that in addition to the representation in those aspects of the scientific sort of dimension of what it means to be an atheist, the representation really helps to communicate the space or the reality that there is a space on the intellectual or or emotional spectrum for you to doubt and for you to be skeptical. And I think that and to be specifically skeptical about God. And I think that in our cultures, I tell people all the time, I said, it's not that we don't have a lot of atheists. It's not that we don't have skepticism in our communities, right? It's not that Black people aren't or can't be skeptical. We're skeptical about a lot, right? And there's a lot of critiques historically about religion. Our Black scholars and the people who are civil rights leaders, whether we're talking about the big ones and the little ones, they all are practicing skepticism, right? Like in order for them to fight for any kind of civil rights or to speak up against the system in any kind of way, they're being skeptical, even of the things that they say they believe in church, right? So we have skepticism, but what we don't have in our community, or what we don't have enough of, is people demonstrating that you can also extend that skepticism to the question of the existence of God. That's the thing that we don't have enough of. And so by being a non-believer, being an atheist, agnostic, whatever, secular humanist, but being someone who is decidedly not religious, you are essentially communicating to your community that I am here. I'm at this place on the spectrum, and I don't ask permission to be here. I claim the right to use this space. I claim the right to think this thing through to this point where I'm making this assertion, right? And I claim this, I assert myself in the sense that, like, you can ask me questions and I can have answers for you. I'm not just doing this to be contrarian, but like I've figured enough of this out to be able to say this boldly and coldly. And so we need that representation to communicate to our own folks that you can apply the same skepticism that you have about, say, the police, and how investigations are run, or the legal system, or you can apply the same skepticism about environmental racism, in all these other areas of social injustice. You can apply that same skepticism to the question of God and whether or not God exists, and then flip it and then say, okay, now, given all that we've gone through in this country and in this world, at least over the last 500 years, how does a loving and beneficent God figure into that equation? And tell me why, ask me why I am at this place one more time, and then you can see why I'm here. So we need that. We need to be bold and cold, because we need to remind our people that we can extend this skepticism to this question. We don't have to act like, oh, and on the by and by, and one day soon we'll figure it all out. There'll be a big, conference room in heaven, and we can ask questions finally. No, we can ask these questions now, and we can take a stand on that.
Woohoo, Kevon, let's bring it home, bro.
To that point, I just want to piggyback off what Cynthia and Rose said. It normalizes it also. It gets to the point where it makes it easier as far as dealing with religious people. Like 40 years ago, if you were gay and society was discriminating against you, that was just the norm. Like there was nothing. Now, if you're anti-gay, people look at you like, what's wrong with you? So I think being more open about your atheism and being out there, having people see you, it's like, okay, you're just a normal person. So I want to get to the point where it's at the point where, you're an atheist and that's just who you are, and discriminating against you for that just seems weird and crazy. So I think we need to be more open about that to normalize that we're not, we're not monsters. We're not weirdos. We're your family. We're your neighbors, that kind of thing.
Awesome. I'm telling you, I like I said before, I am not the only one out here with this, and I just absolutely love bringing together powerful voices and those in our communities who are representing us very well. And I think everyone here is doing so a wonderful, amazing job so far. And so for the last official question, in your words, how can the overall secular community support Black atheists, Black non-believers, as well as other atheists of color?
Well, I think one of the most important things they can do is listen. Gotta listen. You gotta acknowledge that there are differences, and this may sound like the simplest thing in the world, but there have been problems with this. And the reality is that we have to get to a point where we are willing to understand and accept that we have different experiences in atheism. We have different experiences in our journey away from the belief in the superstitious. And you've got to listen to what our experiences are and understand the different factors that may be at play that maybe are not at play in other communities. If we're going to expand this movement, if we're going to expand atheism, humanism, rationalism outside of this little bubble of, people, then we've got to understand, we've got to have a deeper understanding. This is not different than anything, right, in life. If you want to reach people, you have to understand people. So I would say the first thing that has to happen is you got to listen to us. You got to listen to us, because we're the ones who lived it. We know who our people are. We know the challenges and the struggles that are keeping them in spaces of bondage. And as Mandisa so often says, and Rose said the same thing, this is liberation work. This is liberation work. And frankly, I don't believe that we will ever have equality for Black people in this country until there's a tipping point where most of us are saying, this God thing ain't working. That's my feeling on it. But if mainstream organizations want to help us get to that point, they've got to listen to us, because we are uniquely positioned to understand how to lead our own people out of that bondage. And it is bondage.
Yeah, Madison, I totally agree. And also when it comes to listening, I think that civil discourse, I've always been a fan of civil discourse. Like, we need to actually start having like real conversations with one another, and including with our own people. Uh, I like taking a very, street epistemology approach as far as like, why do you believe what you believe? And also, like you mentioned, Madison, like if we be totally honest when it comes to a belief in God and serving God, and especially when it comes to the Black community, it has not served us well at all. Quite the opposite. We have data and historical reference that actually showed how the church and belief was quite oppressive to our people rather than something else. And so I also think that some truth telling needs to happen as well. And and when we get to that particular part where we can really actually have like real conversations about why we exist, and why we are having a rise in more and more Black folk actually identifying or even being very open about being atheist. The organizations that support us, we should support them. The Black Nonbelievers does great work, and they partner with other atheist organizations to normalize this conversation. And even with that, I wholeheartly believe in Black liberation and Black equity and being Black without being shot, all that. I believe in those things. And I think that oftentimes, like, if we can even put down this spookism about, well, God gonna work it out in our particular community and in that particular space, and be honest about, let's approach these things in a more holistic manner, using critical thinking rather than faith. I think that would put us in a better space as well.
Yeah, I don't mean to be the capitalist of the group, because I definitely grew up on Star Trek too, and very socialist type of show. Sorry.
Indeed, that's right.
Nerding out for a second, but like, it takes money. I'm sure Mandisa knows this stuff is not cheap. So one of the best ways you can support is to donate. Like, it's I mean, I haven't organized on the level that Mandisa has, but I put together some stuff, and I know it's not cheap. So I think if you can donate, then donate. I mean, if you have an organization and you're doing well, especially a lot of atheist organizations are doing well. So if you can, hit up the blacknonbelievers.org and the other Black atheist websites. Or if you have a space, if you have like an event space, or you have like your own convention, like that you're hosting, like invite one of us, multiple Black organizations even, and we can promote our groups that way, and that'll bring in more funds for the organization.
Yeah, I totally echo everything that you all said. Listen, donate, and I'll only add respect. And there's my sister and I, we have a little, speaking of, you all are Jamaican, there's a YouTube clip that came out a couple of years ago. This is one of those street cam kind of things. And there's this white woman in New York somewhere, I think it might've been 34th Station, who called. There was a Jamaican woman waiting for the train, and she was a homeless woman, and she called the Black woman, you can figure it out, an N-word. And the clip was kind of passed around as a little bit of a, look at this woman get cussed out, because the Jamaican lady cussed that woman out good. Right. But at the end of her words, what she said was, have some respect for Black people. And so me and my sister, we laugh about that, because we kind of laugh, but it's a wonderful thing, I think, that we don't really say enough of or think about enough. Sometimes it just comes down to have some respect for Black people, have some respect for Black atheists, right? Have some respect. And so that's why I recall that moment, because listen, donate, but have some respect. And that's for our community too, as well, because there are a lot of people in our Black communities who don't have respect for us. And we need to charge them as well. Listen, donate, and respect. And if you can't donate, at the very least, listen and respect, because that's a thing that I find that is missing. And oftentimes when it comes to, as Kevon mentioned, conferences and things like that, I find that there are people in high places who know about us as an organization, who know of the work that we're doing, and they continue to have opportunities to bring people together and to convene to talk about Black issues, and they routinely leave us out of this conversation. And so I feel like having done some of the work to try to contact some of these people, and a lot of those things falling on deaf ears, I'm like, okay, I see. So y'all gonna keep getting together and talking about what y'all can do to make the Black community better, but y'all don't want to have us at the table. You know what I'm saying? So, all across the board, listen, donate, but have some respect, and listen to Black atheists when we talk about what we talk about. We're not just doing this, we're not just taking this stand just to be contrarian or just to get attention. This is, as we said before, this is real work that we're doing. And we're being bold and cold in this stance, and we're taking a position where a position needs to be taken. And so listen to us. We're not just doing this just to get attention.
Right. I will add my voice into that. For those who say that they care about dismantling white supremacy, and I'm talking to more white folks, if you care more about helping to dismantle these institutions and you care about helping more Black, brown, other people of color, check your microaggressions. Check how you are responding to those of us who are organizers, leaders, practitioners in the community, and make sure that you are not talking over us, because again, we are doing this work because it's needed and it's necessary. It isn't because we are looking for that acceptance. We defied that. Our existence defies that need or want for acceptance, because we know what it's like to be othered, and to continue to experience those that otherness and those microaggressions, especially in spaces where people say that they are fighting. It has to be more than just you saying Black Lives Matter. It has to be more than just you speaking to the plight of Black folks and people of color. You need to watch how you interact and engage and you treat us every day, because this work is going to be done no matter what, no matter what you think or what you do. And check your privilege. Check your privilege, because we see it. We definitely see it. And again, this is one of the reasons why I am so glad that we are here in this space. I'm not going to get on a soapbox. I'm not going to, go, and because I think all of what we're saying and what we're doing here is absolutely important. And I just want to reiterate that this has never been just about me. Black Nonbelievers is not about Mandisa Thomas. It is about the people who need us, those who have felt that isolation for so long, those who have thought that they were the only ones out there, and to make their voices more powerful. What you do with it once you find us and once you find that liberation is up to you, but we definitely do more together. And I am glad, I'm happy that everyone here, Kevon, Cynthia, Madison, and Ro, who was on this panel, have been rocking with us now for a while, because this is what community building is about. It is about maintaining and doing it in love, doing it in love, doing it in fellowship, which is not a religious word. It is about understanding what that pain is and turning it into healing. And healing means doing that tough work. And this is something that more people need to understand about the work that we do and the joy that we bring to it. Because it is about joy and getting people to that space where they are more liberated. And so I just needed to throw that in there. Make sure you are checking your microaggressions, checking your privilege, and know that that we can overturn these, these institutional the racist factors, which are now more subliminal than you may think. And it's going to be up to more of you and more of us to recognize and turn that around. So before we get into Q&A, because I'm sure folks may have some questions for us, right? So we're going to get into a bit more of a fun conversation. So not all of us agree on the same things. We don't think, we all don't think alike. So I want to ask the panelists, coming to America too. Those of us are in the same age range where most of us are Gen Xers. So we are familiar with Eddie Murphy's work. And so just getting into a bit of that, what were your thoughts on the new Coming to America?
Oh.
Well, first
we're
of
gonna try to
all,
make this a little quick.
okay, I just have to say, okay, I tuned in just for a hot minute. Okay, I tuned in for a hot minute. I don't know if it was the worst minute. I don't know. But it was some green screen going on in that particular scene, and I was not digging it. At that moment, it was the scene where the lion was outside, and it was a cage. That whole scene. Okay. I recognize that I look at film and television maybe a little differently because of my production background. But Lord, that whole we're outside. And then the cage and the lion, I was like, oh my God, who paid for this? Like, who funded this film? Who funded this? And what happened in this particular scenario? I just couldn't watch it after that. I was like, I can't do it. I can't do it. I couldn't do it.
Oh God, my face hurts. Thank you, Madison. Coming to America too. And I was saying this right before we started. My overall thoughts it was a delightful mess. It was a delightful mess. So the good stuff is I did appreciate some of the nostalgia. I like seeing the where are they now type folk, like, the barbershop from the Mighty Sharp people. I love that, we had at the end, Mr. Randy Watson, Jackson Heights' own, because I believe the children are our future. Don't forget that shoulder. Remember that shoulder we did? And I'm holding real back not to do that whole scene, so I will not. And even at the end, and if y'all hadn't seen it, I'm about to give you a spoiler. Y'all remember my name is Peaches, and I'm the best. All the DJs want to feel my Anyway, they actually came back towards the end of the movie. I was like, yo, where'd you dig them up from? And I do like that about 6,000 people got paid in the middle of a pandemic. So I'm happy about that. Everything else, child. First off, I was tripping about, like, especially Arsenio Hall, like the accent, like he kept on slipping in and out. Can you at least try? Can you try to keep an accent?
Even trying. He wouldn't even try. Like, did you ever talk to a single African? Anybody from the entire continent? Did you get anybody from the continent?
Okay, so the royal groomer was from the continent, and the person who played Wesley Snipes, Colonel or General Izzy's son, he's from Nigeria. So, but he didn't talk. He didn't. He had no lines. He was just like, he like showed up like 2 or 3 times, and I was like, yeah, that's my son. And he was like, and I'm like, I mean, it was a good escapism. I had some wine, so I giggled a little bit. So there you go. Okay, I'm done.
Go on, Kevon. Go on.
I have nothing nice to say, so I'm going to keep my mouth shut. Moving on.
I have my reviews are mixed, and I probably am the last person to be commenting on this. Mandisa knows why, but she ain't gonna blow me up. So thank you in advance, Mandisa, for not blowing me up. But no, I enjoyed it. I saw it as like the less serious version of Wakanda. Like, it seemed to me like it was the counterpoint. Like, Wakanda is more serious and more thoughtful about what it wants to be and what it wants to represent. And Coming to America was just like, look, we just having fun. We gonna make some inappropriate jokes. We gonna have some scenes that might not be realistically shot or realistic looking, or the accents might be real, but we just want to have fun with it. So I enjoyed it overall, but I do recognize that there were some things about it that were problematic in terms of the themes, and in terms of the the tropes that perhaps it was advancing in terms of what Africa and what living as an African is like. And so I do want to pay respect to that. But I was just, yeah, I'm not going to fight with nobody who didn't like it, because I see that too. I just kind of round up to like, okay, it was cool. We laughed a little bit, but I definitely do. I can understand why people might
It's
not.
all love. It's
Yeah.
all love. It's all love.
Yeah, and I will say that for me, I do tend to find some seriousness in the humor, and I thought it was cute. For me, it was a bit predictable, because if you watch the first Coming to America, the theme was that times are changing, right? And so I do think that this new one sort of built on that, sort of going back to the basics to realize that times are further changing. And
Every day.
right. But it also speaks to the costuming was fantastic. You can't take anything away from that. The costuming and the wardrobe was absolutely amazing. And the first Coming to America actually paved the way for the Black Panthers and the cinematography of the Black Panthers and the Wakandas that we see in recent years. And I just really thought that it was good for adults who may have forgotten what it was like for them when they were younger, to realize that their children and other younger folks are going through those same things, so that there isn't really much of a disconnect, and that this is something that these are life lessons that perhaps the future generations can build on, and that folks don't the older generations don't become so steeped in there, or so stuck in their ways that they forget. So I thought that the movie did a good job of bringing it back, and sort of reminding the old folks that what, you were young once, you were that rebellious once, don't take that away from your children, and so these are things that in everyday practice that we can learn or continue to pass on to other generations. And so I thought that part was good. Yeah, there were some, I mean, if you know a lot, I mean, if you're into cheesy comedies, then you find it a little bit more funny. I absolutely love the Trading Places reference. It was a way of bringing sort of the old back into the new. But I like Ro. I totally understand why some folks didn't like it. I'm not gonna sit up here and say, oh my gosh, you're wrong if you didn't like it, or that But yeah, I sit in the middle. I get it. I thought it was cute. But I understand why people thought it was Wesley Snipes was absolutely funny. I thought he was good. I thought he was good. And if you haven't watched it, it's on Amazon Prime. I at least encourage you to take one look at it. But yes, this is a good way to kind of show that. So funny. I wouldn't say all that. I would, but I mean, I think that bringing, I mean, the nostalgia of the old school hip hop, some of the older actors and such. I thought that was great as well. But
It was better than Soul Plane, right? What'd you
oh
say?
yeah, yes.
Facts.
Yes, I would agree with that. So if this is an example of some conversations that you're going to hear over in our spaces. And I will say before we get to the Q&A, it is up to us. For those of you who are wanting to represent us, it takes us to build it. We aren't depending on other people. We encourage all support, but it will take more of us to help build it. So just putting that out there. So there are some questions that we will take. I know we've been on here for over an hour now, and I really appreciate all of your time. This has just been wonderful. I hope all of the viewers have been enjoying this. So we have some questions that some folks ask. And Malik, hey, what's going on? So for the DC folks, so that'd be Madison and Roe, what are your perspectives on the DC statehood, House Resolution 51?
Hey, Malik. I think I know you, Malik. Madison, you want to go first?
Well, no, go ahead. I
Okay.
do have some things to say, but it's a
Okay.
little more general. It's a little more general.
So, I'm obviously most people in DC are pro statehood. So it's almost like not really a second thought for those of us here in terms of representation and taxation. But it's interesting though. I have a lot of doubts as to whether or not that's something that will, at least today on March 22nd, 21st, 2021. I have doubts about whether or not that will really be realized. And there are the sort of obstacles and the structural sort of ways things are set up right now that are really prohibitive for that to be passed. In terms of just like filibuster and all that kind of stuff. But then there's also the just the legacy of literally like white supremacy, essentially, in terms of populations and districts and colonies and stuff like that. As I mentioned earlier, I'm from St. Croix. The U.S. bought the Danish the Danish Virgin Islands in 1917 after 246 years of Danish rule. And when the U.S. bought it, the people who were living there had no say in whether or not they wanted to be, bought out by the U.S. in terms of say from the Danish or say from the U.S. And the U.S. treated the colony essentially like, if you look back at the old propaganda, how you see old propaganda from World War II and propaganda from just Jim Crow and stuff like that. If you look at the old propaganda from where I'm from, it's just as racist as anything else that you've seen, about the Jim Crow South, about Hawaiians, about people in Puerto Rico and the Danish West Indies. It's all the same thing. And the same judges that did Plessy Ferguson, and all these other Supreme Court cases that really were landmark rulings against Black folks in terms of citizenship and personhood were affirmed by the judges that did the same things in the colonies. And so the District of Columbia is constructed in a way that accords with that mentality. It sort of comes together in this ideology of erasure and of basically devaluing the people who live here. And it may seem like it's really old, like, now it's a little better. We got Biden in the office, but it's really going to be a heavy, heavy lift that will change a lot. And I'm not sure if this country, despite all of its protestations and pats on the back, I'm not sure if this country is really in a position to do that because of what it will mean for the people in power. So yeah, do we want spaceship? Sure, but will it really happen? Madison, I don't know.
Well, my position, and I guess this is a good opportunity for me to plug my upcoming book. But one of the things that I talk about in Punching Nazis, the plan to end the Republican Party, which is my upcoming book, is that we on the left need to become comfortable with power. We need to become comfortable with getting power, aiming for power, prioritizing power, and when we get it, not being afraid to use it. Absolutely going to be a heavy lift, possibly because we don't know how to actually deal with the power that we've got. This shouldn't be a heavy lift. There should be no question that you cannot tax people without representation. What the fuck is this? It's not complicated, right? The entire country was supposedly, this should be the most patriotic thing on earth to make the District of Columbia a state. What even is going on? And we on the left, this should not be a heavy lift. In fact, this shouldn't be a heavy lift for anybody in America, other than the fact that this is very political, because the District of Columbia votes 96 to 97% Democratic consistently. So that's the politics of it. But what I don't understand is why the left is having a difficult time with this. Clearly, this is what we should be pushing through. And if the right doesn't like it, well, win an election. Win an election, and then you get to do what you want. But if we're in power, we get to do what we want. We're going to have to get settled in with how we acquire power, how we aim for power, and how we use it when we have it. We've got to get over that. We've got to get over our squeamishness about hardballing it. We got to get over that squeamishness. So I just had to say that because that's just sort of my thing. As you can see, this is the thing that really, makes me feel some kind of way.
That's why I went to you first, because I know this is your wheelhouse. But I totally, and I'm speaking in my own capacity at this point. But I've worked with Madison on a number of things in this, and I support her work. And I live in DC, so taxation without representation is like, it's a no-brainer for us,
Awesome. So we have more questions here. So atheist black chick, hello, says a lot of black atheists are focused on reparative justice issues. How are you tapping into that, given economic issues is one of the most important issues for blacks in general? And I know, Cynthia, that's sort of your, I know that's something you talk about a lot.
Yes, I do, Mandisa. I do talk about that a lot.
Yeah. Take it away.
All right. So as far as like reparative justice is concerned, I do believe that I wish actually more black atheists would talk more about it. And I wish that there were more black people that was actually involved with advocating for reparative justice for African Americans. The thing about it is that America has a very long history of doing reparations work in a sense. They've been doing reparations since 1783, either by policy or by lawsuit. However, those who come from chattel slavery never got it, never. I mean, we often talk about General Field Order number 15. That's General Tecumseh Sherman, who spoke with a round table of black preachers and other leaders in their community, who was asked, what do you need the most after you've been emancipated? And they said land. So of course, the whole thing was about a 40-acre land grant to black families in order for them to be able to build up their own, economic base. But that was taken from them, right? After Lincoln was assassinated and President Johnson came into power. But now that we see, if we look at like present day data, when it comes to the position of Black Americans, as far as like being, the lowest on the totem pole when it comes to wealth, I think that we own about we hold about 2.6% of the wealth in the nation. When it comes to unemployment, I believe that our group is like the highest. We're about roughly almost 10% now. 41% of even Black businesses closed since COVID-19. And we can take a lot of these positions that, African Americans have, and we can directly correlate a lot of that back to slavery and Jim Crow. We are the only group that actually had specific policies targeted against us when it came to not being able to build wealth. And I can even think of one specifically, was the GI Bill that a lot of Black GI soldiers was not able to take advantage of until like the 1970s, even though that this was a policy that was enacted in 1944. I remember specifically even like my father was a Korean War veteran. And when my parents were wanting to purchase a home, when my mom was about to give birth to my second sister, they went to the VA's office, filled out all the paperwork in order for them to do the VA bill and VA loan. And he was like, okay, I'm good, because I served for 8 years, right? Next thing you know, he get a letter and say, yeah, you're denied. But it never said why. And he was honorably discharged. And come to find out that it was a lot of Black servicemen who were not able to take advantage of this particular policy. So, I think it's just like really important that, Black Americans, especially Black atheists, we need to lend our voices in these areas as well. We need to be advocates for us to actually have, economic inclusion, because the crux of it is that you can't live in America without money. You just can't, And as much as I fancy myself as kind of a socialist in a lot of my ideology, I understand that, we need wealth, and we need to be able to pass it on to generation after generation in order for them to actually feel or have some sense of normalcy in the United States. So, it's important to me that, we do advocate more for reparative justice. And at this particular juncture, when we're talking about reparations, this is the most time period that I have seen that reparations have been talked about in a more serious manner. And I think that we should take advantage of that and really push forth to, it's time to, to do redress and repair and closure.
It's interesting that one of the biggest and respected voices in the formalized arguments for reparations in the U.S. is an atheist, and many people don't know that. And I'm not sure. I could speculate, but it's a shame that that aspect of him is not well known. And it's almost as if it were to be known, that it would almost discredit his arguments and his standing or his ability to represent the Black community, or Black legislatures, and legislators in the reparations fight. And I'm talking about Ta-Nehisi Coates. He's a non-believer. He's an atheist.
I did not know that.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for sharing.
We were talking earlier today about liberation work. And one of the things that I said in that segment was that Black people will never have equality until we shed these superstitious beliefs. And this issue of reparations is a very good example of it. And I want to challenge any of our white viewers, our anti-racist allies. I want to challenge you right now, because I know that you are out there advocating for equality and justice. You are doing this labor. But really, until you can support the work of Black non-believers with your dollars. All the money that you're giving to all these other organizations and everything like that, that's great. But what I'm saying to you right now is that unless Black people shed these superstitious beliefs, we will not have liberation. We will not have equality. This is the foundation, because if we think that, just in this example of reparations, if I believe that all my, you know, it's a slavery. My gifts are in the by and by. I'm gonna have, you know, I might not have a good time in this life, but I'll have a good time in the next one.
Riches and glory.
Riches and glory. Oh, blah, 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 blah. Okay, but see, if you believe that, are you really going to advocate strongly for reparations in this life? Where is the line you're going to stop? Because you're going to be like, you know what, this is all right. That's enough. That's good. This is all right. I don't want to ask too much. Massa.
Come on now.
This is not the line between point A and point B is very clear. It's very clear. This mentality that we've been acculturated with, we've been indoctrinated with through slavery, is still with us. And we cannot achieve just something as reparations, the mindset that says we don't have to do this now, we can wait. It's okay. We're long suffering. The fruits of the spirit of love, joy, peace, long suffering, blah blah. All of that comes into play, and it sabotages our fire for justice and for equality. It short circuits it. It cuts it right off at the knees. So what I am saying to you, if you are white and you're listening to this and you're an anti-racist ally, I am telling you, whatever money that you're giving to any other Black social justice organization, you need to actually match it with Black non-believers. And the reason for that is because we cannot have equality. All of the other organizations, we cannot do that when we are still in bondage with this religious, superstitious thought processes that have been placed in our, been raised with generation after generation. We are not going to achieve liberation without it. It's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen.
And I would only add to what you just said. I would only add the same mentality also be taken up by some of our own, because we got our own in our communities supporting all kinds of stuff, and when it comes to these types of initiatives, it's just silence. And so we got our work to do as well to make sure that we support Black non-believers instead of looking at us as if we're mad at God and being mad about us being mad at God, because that's often like the response that I get. And some of it is unspoken. So I'm not going to make it seem like everybody's rude and everybody's necessarily very loud and disrespectful. But the reactions in our communities tend to be one of a different kind of erasure. And it's I think it's very hurtful, I think, because once again, to what you said, Madison, too, listen to us. We have to listen to ourselves as well, you know? And instead of just sort of writing us off as just people who are just brainy, or people who are just cantankerous, or folks who just want to cause trouble. But you know, to what you're saying, the riches and glory, you know, he owns a house and a cattle on 1,000 hills and all that kind of stuff, and I'm gonna have my mansion in glory and all that kind of stuff, and you know, redemptive suffering, you know, he never gives us more than we can bear. That kind of
gates to the city.
Yeah, you know, I mean, this is you know, we're getting it from all sides, you know, and it doesn't help.
All right. Yes, this is a very, very powerful conversation that we're having. Kevon, did you have anything to add to that?
No. I think they all said it pretty well.
Okay, awesome. We have time for one more question, and we'll take that now. Okay, so Amit, asks, I want to learn more about Black atheist issues and experiences, but I'm afraid of being offensive and insensitive. What is the best way to learn more?
I think since I've been a little quiet, I'll hop on that. I think the best way to learn is Black Nonbelievers is not just for Black people. One of the screening questions when you join Black Nonbelievers is, are you okay with, non-Black members in the group? So if you want to learn more, we're here. Like, we have meetups, and we've been doing it on Zoom for a while, for obvious reasons, but we're here. Like, there's some kind with like offending people. I get that. Like, I tend to offend people sometimes with certain questions, but like, if you're being earnest, if you're being honest, and you're being like genuine, and people, I think people can see that. Like, even if you ask a question that might seem to you kind of dumb, or like you think that most people already know, like, I think the best thing to do is to spend time in Black spaces respectfully, hopefully that these are welcoming Black spaces, hopefully, but definitely Black Nonbelievers is, but spend time in Black spaces, talk to Black atheists. I think that's the best way to get to know like what our issues are.
I agree, Kevon. Talk to us, and like, I always like encourage, folks, like, if you have questions, for Black atheists or what have you, like, if you come respectful, I think that we'll figure that out. Like, you do have like some folk who just want to troll you, and that is quite, apparent as well. And if you come with the trolling energy, you're probably going to get,
we
a
will
lot of
check that.
pushback. Oh
We
yeah,
check that
quickly. Okay. Follow me on Twitter and you'll see. Anywho, so no problem cussing you out. Not but again, like, if you come respectfully, and if you really want to learn, what I'm saying, just ask. And it's kind of like, I kind of like equate that a little bit to, not assuming people's pronouns. Like, if you're not really sure, just ask. And I know, like, for me, I try to like keep, as open as possible, the lines of communication between other people who happen to, belong to different races and communities, to have, like, dialogues about what exactly is, a Black atheist issue. What does that look like? When certain things happen, how does this make you feel? Or what can I do as an ally to assist, in seeing that, Black folk get more equity, equality, things of that nature, and especially, like, to help, raise Black atheist voices. And yeah, we can have that conversation. And I think that, a lot more of us, especially that's kind of out there, are way more accessible than, some people think that we are. I was surprised how, inviting Mandisa was, because, like, when you and I said this to you, Mandisa. I said, like, when I first met you, I was like, I'm fangirling a little bit, because when you Google Black atheists, your picture comes up, sis. I'm sorry, it just does. So, like, oftentimes, like, when people are like, within that realm, like, that can be considered intimidating. But she has been nothing but gracious and lovely and kind, and I do appreciate that. And I think that, like, the more of us that are out here, that are presenting ourselves here, are more like that than not. So yeah, just keep on asking questions. Don't worry about being offensive. Just be respectful.
Right. Cynthia's check is in the mail, by the way. Just kidding.
You can make that out too. No, I'm just kidding.
and just to add on, like, one thing I hear a lot from people who want to be allies, but are like afraid to like ask questions, is they feel that like they'll be like they'll ask, or they'll get like a response of like, well, you should already know. And I understand that happens. That's going to happen. Not everybody's a diplomat. Not everybody's in the moment, like 100% prepared to represent like being Black or being an atheist. So you might ask someone, and it might be a bad day for them. But that, you keep asking. Just like we said, just be respectful. And if you get like somebody who's having a bad day, it's probably,
Yeah, Madison or Ro, y'all want to add to that? No? Oh, okay.
No, I think they've said it all. They've said it all.
Awesome. Yes. I think it's important to reemphasize that, yes, our spaces focus on education, information, fellowship, being welcoming, but also holding each other accountable. And this is the best way for us to do that. So, once again, I'd like to thank your friendly neighborhood atheists for allowing us to host this roundtable. This was a fantastic panel. Thank you all so much for being here. I just absolutely love you all. This is just amazing. And for those of you who want to support the work of Black Nonbelievers, you can do so first and foremost by visiting our website at blacknonbelievers.org. You can follow us on social media. We are on YouTube as well. You can find our YouTube channel at Black Nonbelievers Inc. We are on Facebook at Black Nonbelievers, Twitter at B Nonbelievers. The B and the N are capitalized. We're on Instagram at B Nonbelievers Inc. Also, you can find us. You can please donate. We are a 501c3 organization. Donations to us are tax deductible. You can make your contributions recurring on a monthly basis. We have also availed ourselves to the Cash App generation. So you can find us on Cash App at Black Nonbelievers. You can also designate us as a beneficiary on Amazon Smile. And as you can see, Cynthia is representing our swag, as am I. So we do have an online store. You can purchase merchandise and other items from us to help support our work. And also, if you have a TD Ameritrade account, you can transfer stock to us as well. And you may also designate a portion of your paycheck to us if your place of employment has a charitable giving program. All you need is our tax ID number, which is on our website. So I'd like to say thank you all once again. Thank you to the viewers for watching. Thank you to all the panelists for joining us. Tell everyone, tell the folks where you can be found or how folks can get in touch with you. Whoever wants to start.
Cynthia, you go ahead. You're on mute.
I sure was. I forget about that red button. Anyway, so you can find me on Twitter at @CamGlamming. I'm also on Instagram at @CamGlamming. Matter of fact, I have a link tree too. So it's Linktree /CamGlamming. That's CAMGLAMMING, and it has all of my social media, all of my YouTube links, like my sites, the whole you dig. This Linktree, Cam Glamming. There you go.
All right. Who's next?
Yeah, Madison, go ahead. Go ahead.
So the easiest way to reach me, if you're interested in my political work, is to go to strategicextremist.com. That would be me, strategic extremist. And there'll be social links on their political work. And then, of course, politics, again, as I said earlier when I introduced myself, politics is only part of what drives me in my day-to-day life and in the work that I do. The other way that you can reach me is pretty simple, madisonpaige.me. And that'll take you to a page where you can see the totality of who I am and what I'm involved in the endeavors and things that I care about. That's Strategic Extremist for my political work, strategicextremist.com. And to see more about the more well-rounded aspects of who I am and what I'm doing, you can go to madisonpaige.me.
Bro. Okay,
Yeah.
I'll go. I'm not the biggest on social media, but you can obviously find me on Meetup. If you search Black Nonbelievers of New York on Meetup, you'll find me there. If you have any questions for me, you can shoot me a message on the Meetup app. My Google Voice number is also on there. Feel free to text me any questions about like Zoom stuff or eventually in-person stuff. So meetup.com and search Black Nonbelievers of New York, and you can find me on there.
And for Black Nonbelievers of DC, you can find us on Facebook. Our public-facing page is BN of DC, and that's capital B, capital N of, and capital D and C. Also, we are on Meetup, especially if you find Kevon and BN of New York, you'll find us not far behind that. Just put in Black Nonbelievers of DC. You can find me on Twitter at Rogier1. All of my Instagram and Twitter and Clubhouse handles are at Rogier1. That's ROGIERS and the number 1. And if you're interested in just looking me up and what I do musically and my artist work, you can find me at fibbymusic.net. That's FIBBYMUSIC.net.
Yes, and finally, before we close this out, I encourage you to visit BN's website to look up more information on the upcoming Women of Color Beyond Belief conference that will take place in September. It will be another hybrid event in Chicago, in Chicagoland. Madison is still slated to be one of our speakers. It will be a joint hybrid and in-person event. So we hope you will join us for that. All are welcome to attend and support. And we are back on track for BNCCon this year. We will be back on the Carnival Horizon. So if you are interested in joining us on the high seas for our cruise convention, you are more than welcome to do that too. So please do support Black atheist-centered programming, Black atheist-centered Black-centered atheist organizations like ours. You can find more information on these wonderful panelists and also and also the work that we do. So thank you all very much. Enjoy the rest of your day, and again, continue to support all of our work. Thank you.
Thank you to my top tier patrons: Cindy PLAZA, Kenneth, Leonard, Kathy, Letto, JumpandShoot, Oz, Secular, Rarity, Chianti, and Fava Beans, Philip Leitch, Kaitlyn Beyond, Toast, Richard Gilliver, and Kyle Brewer. Also, thank you to Mandisa Thomas and the entire Black Nonbelievers Roundtable. We'll be back Tuesday with The Perspective, where we tackle paranormal and supernatural claims with Oz from the Atheist Roundtable will be co-hosting. Good night, everyone.